right there, I will say, hey, good morning, and welcome to Noodling on Wires. It's Jason,
And Gareth.
and we're here. Today, I'm going to build the ADDAC 304, the manual gates DIY kit from Lisbon, Portugal. This has been in my bin for a good long time. And I don't think it's a very complicated build at all. I mean, there's a few surface mount little resistors and things, and a whole lot of jacks to solder, but it is just a number of switches. But if you put it in between for like gates or triggers, you can just drop stuff in and out really quick, which I think is going to be imminently playable.
When you start off your builds, do you like to clean the boards first?
I haven't been. I mean, I used to quite a bit, but
Yeah,
I really haven't because most everything comes through quite nice. I mean, you can see this is almost, if I can zoom in a little bit, this is almost pre-tinned. You see that?
yeah.
And so these just go really, really fast. So like everything we've been talking about recently, it's what can I actually get done in a show?
Yeah, it's a good one to choose though.
I think so. I mean, this is literally the entire parts bag, and you can see it's mostly just the panel hardware. So
Sure. So you gonna do the SMD by hand?
yes, yes,
That's good.
it's a rare thing for me these days. But the oven is here, and I'm out. It's underneath the desk, but I'm out of paste. The solder paste I had actually
That's fine.
congealed because I haven't used it in a while when I was moving, and it's all gone. So I have to order new paste.
Well, that's cool because I know like a few people have asked me like especially when it comes to soldering, that they're keen for us to like slow it down and show some of the details. So this would be a good opportunity
Sure, absolutely.
because the types of soldering I can see on there, you've kind of got they're mainly sockets and those funny round switches that you get on the occasional thing. I'm trying to think what I've got that's got those. Oh yeah, I know that's the radio music uses
Yeah,
those.
yeah. I mean, they're not difficult. They're little 4-pin jobs,
No,
but excellent. So also got to go to a show last
that's
night,
pretty
which is a
cool.
rare thing for me. One of the artists I know from the Tokyo Festival shot me an Instagram and said, "Hey, do you know about this thing?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Come on down and support me, please." So I did, and I also gave a shout out to another friend of mine who lives here in Osaka, who tends to be a bit of a recluse. He develops firmware for folks, and uh,
That's
and
cool. What?
and so he also got out. I don't know if he wants to be named on stream, so
No.
I'm not gonna do that to him. But thanks for coming with. It was a good time, and we'll definitely have to do it again. So the biggest conversation in the room, though, I mean, there was a couple guys doing DIY stuff in the back. One gentleman, I have some photos of it. I'll throw that up now. He had a um, a little disc, basically, and the disc had like a piano keyboard all laid out on it, and it went
Right.
almost like a clock hand that you could move around. But and then two buttons on the side, one for trigger and one for gate and one for vibrato, and it had
Wow.
almost a theremin kind of quality. He would sit there and he was playing Christmas carols on it and stuff. It was kind of funny. But it was a really neat device, and he designed the whole thing. I had him open the back and show me a little microcontroller, and he was doing STM programming. So that's where it all came from. It was all digital,
Sweet.
but it was a cool little toy, and he had a bunch of modules that were all acrylic faceplate, clear acrylic, with
Yeah.
LEDs embedded in the board. So he had a lot of vertical, you know how it boulder dope for stuff like you would have. Do, do, do.
Yeah.
There's,
Yeah.
the board actually sits this way. He had a lot of those,
Yeah.
so they're
Sure.
deep modules, and I didn't buy any because of that because I don't know if it'll fit in my case. But it looked really really fantastic when you had them all lined up. I'm a sucker. I'm a
Yeah.
sucker for blinky lights.
Yeah. I must admit, I like it when they're right angles like that because it looks like retro computers.
Hmm.
Reminds me of
Yeah,
when they're sandwich. It's like what you're used to seeing now, and you can't see any of the components between. I like to see down. Well, you can see the ones on the rear board, but you can't see everything as well as when it's on a right
right.
angle. But then you're kind of getting into. But then you've obviously got the physical mounting challenge when you've
What?
got
Pardon?
pots
Yeah.
that are right angled. Because like a lot of my early builds that I did of the frequency central, like the envelope X, they had the right angle, the perpendicular like rear main board,
Mm-hmm.
and then some of them use like right angle
Yep.
pots, which kind of which is okay. But the problem now is, I remember when I originally mistakenly ordered a load of 500K of those. I still got them because they were supposed to be vertical pots. But yeah, it's a bit annoying when you got to buy different pot types.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
what I find.
For that, I will definitely buy a full kit. Although, if I need pots, I have a local shop here that will support my habit. In fact, it's the most useful thing in the world because it's only like a traffic light away. It's just and they're very much more geared to the build your own jazz listening amplifier, hi-fi audio system stuff,
Oh yeah,
but they carry ungodly amounts of classic components, which,
that's useful.
which is excellent because if I ever run out of resistors or caps or op amps or anything, I can run right down there and get them.
Yeah, when I was first starting out, I did like a massive amount of investigation into locations to try and get hold of pots, and in the end, I've realised that Thonk is, probably the best place to get them,
Still.
especially with their multi-buy discount.
Mm-hmm.
They become incredibly good.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, when you're starting off, you don't really think about that. You don't think, oh yeah, I want to buy, 200 of these things. But once you realise that you're going back and buying the same stuff again and
Yep.
again, you soon get into it. So you going for the traditional tin the single
Yeah,
one?
single
Nice.
pad, and I'm actually trying to get
Yeah.
my good tweezers here. I'm sorry. I'm gonna move my camera.
Are you going to use are you going to use flux?
I have some here, but only liquid. So I
Yeah.
apologize for moving my camera around. I can't get my tweezers out of the bin because I have too many drivers on top of it. There we go. These are nice.
Oh yeah, they're kind of old
Yeah,
school.
this is very
Like,
very kind of old school,
you might want to move my
but they do that, and I can let
little.
go.
Oh, they're pretty
Yeah.
cool until they ping off.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm watching.
Ka-ding.
Luckily, these are 1Ks. I've got a lot of them kicking around. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, they become a little magnetized over the year, so I need to be careful with that. And I can't see.
I know that's what I was going to say. I'd have no chance
Pardon me.
without that.
That's just the lighting here. So we want to talk about the elephant in the room right away, or like
What, straight in?
Well, okay. I mean, I have some
Wow.
video of the show as well, so we can see that.
Yeah, I think we need to see the show.
Right.
We need to see how well you're doing without the. I have to wear about 18 pairs of glasses to do this.
I don't know how I'm missing that macro, so it's very very difficult to show off. Oh, there we go.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's good, man.
So yeah, let's kick over and check out the event. Um, so on the left there, we have the doctor. On the right, Zed Hyper, who's the gentleman who invited me in. The doctor had, I don't know his name. I guess it was his event because he gave a nice little speech at the end and thanked everybody. But he's got this lab coat. That's his whole shtick. It just says the doctor on it. Now I know in Europe, in England, the doctor has a different meaning. But I don't know. I enjoyed it, and I did grow up watching Doctor Who, so I'm familiar.
Yeah, that's cool. I actually work at one of the sets of the original Doctor Who series.
Really, that's fun.
Not the actual. Well, it's not. It was like featured in one of the shows.
Nice.
I won't tell you too much about it because it'll tell you where I work. But
Sure. Well, this guy's
tell you about
guy's
later.
case was fantastic, and that for those that can't read Japanese, this is basically a dry noodle box. Get it? Get
That's
it?
awesome.
It's a noodle box. It's for udon, and they ship dry noodles around in that case to keep them from breaking. They need to come perfect. I mean, if you get a package and the noodles are all broken, nobody in Japan will buy it. So I have to keep them really well protected. And they just ship these boxes back and forth. But he got one and installed his rails in it and placed his whole set out of a noodle box, which I thought was excellent. This is you.
Some of my. Yeah, this is me making stuff. It's probably going to be terrible.
Oh, hardly.
Well, I made it for the show.
Okay, what you're going to say something
But
about the
this
case?
Well, I was just thinking about the ropes that he turned up with.
Those come with. That's the traditional way to close the box.
Here's me shaky handing
There you
soldering.
go.
Look at me in the top left. Look how close I have to get with my like 14 pairs of sunglasses, like magnifiers on. It's actually, I
You
must
don't
have
do
like
you don't do
cataracts or
better with a
something.
loop or something. I've noticed it. I'm
I
not
don't,
doing nearly as well as I used to either. So I wouldn't worry about it too much.
but this is not an example of like really good soldering. This is just me soldering. Let's just put it out there. I need to do
Imagine.
something. I need to do because my eyes, they're like +4. I don't know if I mentioned
Hmm.
before, but they must be. They've deteriorated. They really have, and I have to see. Like what we're seeing in the background on the
Hmm.
video. That's actually what I want to be able to see, and that's how close I have to go to be able to see it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's what. Because I like to see the whole thing happening. I mean, you can see there's a bit of soldering. Solder's not quite melting. It's quite a high temperature, that iron as well. I think I've got a bit of oxidization in my tip,
Hmm.
and I think that it's probably been left on too long because when my wife was using it, she was complaining of that as well. I use like a liquid flux even with through hole,
Hmm.
just because otherwise I can't get the solder to go right through to the other side, and like because I'm soldering top down
Right.
here, which I find a lot easier for multiple resistors because you don't have to keep doing the physical flip all the
Sure.
time. But I like to use liquid flux just so that I get the solder to cone right through. When you get the old
Yeah, you want those
wind,
fillets, yeah.
the cones. Yeah, so I'm like, so basically that's what I'm using SMD, well, liquid flux. I'm cleaning the board. I'm basically doing like one piece of work where I place all the resistors, and I go one value at a time. I don't just go place all the values because in the past I've had problems with that. When you have like a bit of a freak out moment, I like to do it in stages. But
I do everything in small batches. I mean, it's much more manageable
yeah,
than trying to get everything done. And I've seen people do it, but to do everything as a one shot is concerning to me because you make mistakes. I
yeah,
would make
sure.
mistakes.
Well, the problem is that if you're like doing soldering for a long period of time, and you want to distract yourself with your favorite music or something,
Hmm.
you can kind of find your mind drifting away from the task in hand, and you have that kind of panic moment. Oh, have I just done that 100K or not? And then you find out you have done it, and you keep going. And what I find is that the checking whether you made a mistake situation starts getting in the way,
Sure.
and you start polluting your own water hole
Right.
at that stage. Yeah, so I just basically do one type of resistor, put them all in, top down, put them through. I mean, it's actually Kinkus, the
Yeah.
Synth DIY. He used it, and I was thinking, oh, he kind of confirmed that that was a good thing to
Hmm.
do because you don't see that many people doing it top down. But I find it to be much
Sure.
better personally.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I finished one, and what I did do is I went through and I pre-tinned all the resistor pads that I'm going to be doing. So so I
Yeah,
added just the little bulb on one side to be able to touch
makes
to.
sense.
So it's
So
the
the
only thing
idea
I
is,
did while we were off camera.
so you just tin those guys, then they're ready to accept their resistor.
Right.
Because obviously, if you haven't done SMD before, that the action of soldering, like you would with through hole, is quite difficult where they're physically so small. Like Jason's showing the technique which Darren uses as well, where you place and solder at the same
Yeah.
time, which is quite. Because originally I was doing it with holding a pin.
Oh, really? I've seen people do
Yeah,
that. I didn't realize you were doing the pin thing. It,
well, I did
it's
start off
nice.
with. It
It's
was a
nice
good
for
starting point.
placement. I mean, it's because I mean that's
Yeah,
why I use little these little tips. I mean, they're super sharp.
yeah.
So that's to
Like some Victorian medical implement.
a little bit. Nice. Um, yeah. So you said straight in on the issue. While I was there, like I said, there was a couple of people that were doing DIY stuff, and I did pick up
Yeah,
a cool little module that I'll probably do a mini show about at some point. It's basically a USB interface. Outputs a couple CVs and a gate and or trigger, and it actually just accepts a computer mouse. So you
that's
can get
pretty
yourself
cool.
a wireless thumb mouse with gate and trigger, and he had it set up that way. He had two oscillators that were controlled each other. Of course, he didn't put any attenuation in, so it was wildly off scale. But I mean, I absolutely see
Yeah,
being able to do like detune and filter cutoff and gate. Like
that
it
would
sounds
be
like a
cool.
fun thing. Like I couldn't resist. It's a stupid little thing, and he was selling it pre-made for like $100, so US, so whatever that turns out to.
Fair.
Certainly not expensive for what it is, and I'm not going to build one. I mean, I come up with one on my own, so just buy it with a thing. But we got into the conversation, even on the Japanese side, we got into the Behringer conversation, and I don't know how deep down that rabbit hole we want to go, but I think we have to discuss it at least a little bit because it's all anybody in DIY is talking about right now.
Well, just today, just this just this evening, I was seeing a post that's going ahead because there's an open discussion going on from Behringer about whether or not they should come with sliding nuts or rails. These because basically what we're talking about
Yes.
here.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because let's introduce it.
Okay.
What's happened this
All right.
week is the new Behringer cases here.
So this is the case that we're talking about. It's a how big? 104, I believe. Yeah,
104, yeah,
104,
yeah,
104,
it's one.
104, 6U case. Looks really nice, pre-built power supply, everything else. They've apparently thought it through, and it looks remarkably familiar to me. Does
Go on.
anybody else know what that looks like? Yeah, it's the Mantis case from Tip Top is what it looks like for me. This is the same thing. It's just modeled in black, and a lot of people were concerned that Behringer. I mean, they have a tendency to take good ideas and manufacture them cheaper. It's that whole democratization of musical gear. I mean, I absolutely understand it, and it's a fantastic business model. Because they can come in, and if it's something that has not been in production for a really long time, they can bring it back and make it affordable because the used market is just so expensive. But something that's in production like the Mantis, I'm not so sure how I feel about them cloning it. And it truly is a clone. When you talk about the power supply here, they said they were very happy to tout that it's a 3-zone power supply. And last night while at the show, I had talked to somebody who had a Mantis and said, yeah, that's exactly what we got in the Tip Top case. And I actually went back and looked. We went back and looked through that, and you can see this is the PDF manual for the Mantis. It's a 3-amp supply split into 1-amp zones, 3 zones total. That's exactly the same as the one that Behringer just invented.
You know, we haven't got the Behringer one here.
No,
I agree that there's a similarity in the design, but I think until we really have a chance to look at it, we've got to be a little bit open-minded about this as well.
sure, absolutely.
Because I mainly, I do agree that it looks the same. I do agree that the features look the same. Has it got those side legs on it as well? You know, the ones that fold down, Behringer one.
Oh, the Behringer one, I'm not sure if I saw that or not. I don't believe so, but that would be a thing. You're right.
I'm just interested, really.
That's what you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Well,
Um,
the funny thing is, actually, like I had a friend who had the Mantis case,
yep.
and he had some issues with it actually, to do with Befacco, specifically to do with the Befacco mixer
Hmm.
and the big mixer that Befacco have got,
Yeah.
and the expansion for it. And he had difficulty fitting them in, like with one on the top rail and one on the bottom rail. He had to move them in a specific configuration.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Um,
it looks like that might be the case with this too. You look where the power supply is, and that's not a
yeah,
small. I mean, it looks like a nice power supply. Look at the size of the caps on that.
yeah.
It could be a really good power supply. In Behringer's defense, all recent products, and you can hold up your little demo there.
Yeah,
All the recent products that I've had exposure to have been really decent quality. I mean, surprisingly so. Um, I used to own an old Eurorack mixer, and not
yeah.
Eurorack as in Eurorack, but they just
I
named
know
it.
the one.
It was a desktop mixer. They just put Eurorack on it. I think it was 12 channels, 8 channels or 12 channels, and it was built to a price, I guess is what I want to say. Which I sold it off, and I kind of regret taking money for it. And that's
I
all well
must
and
have,
good.
I must admit,
Yeah,
yeah. Sorry to interrupt you,
no worries,
Jason.
no worries.
I must admit, I agree with you though, because when I had some early Behringer stuff, and my experience with some of the shops that I've gone into, and when I've been enthusiastic, because I've got the Neutron, I've got the Model D, I've got a TD3 on order, and I've gone to the shop and I've basically said, I want to get an RD8 in. Can you
Mm-hmm.
get me an RD8? And actually, because of the history of what you're talking about with noisy mixers or some kind of functional issue with earlier Behringer products, there is still in the industry of people who've been dealing with their products for years, there's still some negative connotations, which I have not, I've come back into music production quite late on, and I've kind of missed that
Mm-hmm.
period.
A stigma.
Uh, yeah, and I know there has been a bit of a stigma, let's face it, about some of the issues you're discussing. But I personally had nothing. I did have a problem with my first Neutron, and I actually put a video up on YouTube about that
Mm-hmm.
problem, and I got thousands of hits on it and a lot of response from people. I've since taken it down because not because of any particular reason, just because I didn't want it on there anymore. But the second one, my second Neutron has been fine, no
Mm-hmm.
issues at all. My Model D,
And I own one as well.
yeah, Model D is perfect, no issues. And because I removed the front panel and put them in the Eurorack case,
Mm-hmm.
when you physically look at the SMD soldering and components on there, it's all top-notch stuff from what I can tell. I'm not an expert on this, but it looks good. It looks professional. There's no corners being cut there, and from my point of view, I'm I'm really happy with the sound of the Neutron and the Model D. I think they're brilliant pieces of kit. Can't argue with them.
Sure.
But but yeah, so
Well, what I will argue is this is a pretty obvious clone. I mean, Behringer has made their name off of cloning stuff, and like I said, in almost all cases, it was out of production equipment that people couldn't get their hands on unless you spent a lot of money, and it was just out of the realm of the normal musician. So they were filling a niche that was really worth pursuing. But I talked to the gentleman who helped make the firmware for this particular device. Line 6 pod. It's for guitar processing. Makes your guitar sound like it comes out of different types of amps, right? It's just
yeah, I'm
a
familiar
guitar
with it. Yeah,
effects thing.
yeah,
And then and he was angry. He doesn't have a high opinion of Behringer at all. It was an interesting conversation, but he was really angry because like a year later they came out with this. This is a Behringer device. Does pretty much the same thing, same color. They copied that kind of kidney weird shape with a little guitar flange off the side, but it was pretty much a blatant clone of what they were doing at line 6. The same thing even in Eurorack just recently. Which case is this? That's the Behringer. That's the Moog. I mean, they didn't even bother to change the little flange on the back of the panel. It's pretty much the same extrusion. They just reverse engineered it and put it out at a cheaper price, like half the price. So there's a lot of that history, even recently, and even in Eurorack. Now another prominent Euro personality clued me into one of the videos with what is the guy's name? Yuri?
Yeah.
Yeah. Had a video, an announcement video when they were playing with Eurorack stuff, saying we're going to be doing Eurorack stuff, yay! And in the background, in his case, he has an FM Ogre, an Ornament and Crime, and they're clearly visible. And that's my biggest concern, is that we as in the DIY community have a huge number of open source projects. Hell, Mutable Instruments open sources everything. If Behringer starts making Mutable Instruments clones, there's going to be a problem. Thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I'll actually forward you something whilst we're on the in here, because I actually have seen. I don't know how substantiated it is, or even if I've got the picture anymore. But basically, there was evidence of this happen, which I don't have at the moment. But
Okay.
yeah, there was a screenshot of the actual module, and then next to it, what looked like either a mock-up or a very similar looking module next to it of a very, very well-known module, the most popular Eurorack module there is.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, that's my concern, and it isn't even, like I said, if it's stuff that just isn't available, that's fine. But this is readily available, and other people's livelihoods are tied to it. Not only that, we have kind of a culture. We've all agreed on the general pricing structure that we operate in. The margins are quite high, right? I mean, this jewelry margins. We know how much the parts cost, and we know how much we pay for a module. But in between that, there's a whole lot of man hours, manual soldering for folks. These are not factories in China stamping them out for the most part. That's what it's going to turn into if Behringer is starting to do that. But we all operate in this space, and we've kind of agreed on what we're going to pay. And I've lived through this. I'm going to tell a little bit more of my personal backstory. I was involved in the iPhone software side of things in the early days. I was writing video games for the iPhone, but way back it was like iPhone 2 era. And Steve had just got up on stage, said, "Hey, we're going to let you make software for it." And so I started writing some video games. I released a card game, got some traction, and then I spent about half a year working on a really good, I thought, kind of modern, updated missile commandy type game. And I wanted to take a stand. At the time, there weren't that many games coming out every single day, but they were all in the 99 cents bracket. And most, I mean, the whole mechanism for monetizing through advertising really hadn't materialized yet. So it was you either get some money for your game or you don't. And I took a stand. I said, you know what? I mean, I used to pay $60 for a video game in the store, and that was in the 80s. Inflation. This is 6 months of my life that I invested into making this piece of software. I'm going to put it in the $1.99 tier. I never made enough money on that to even pay off the Apple developer subscription, $100 a year. And the reason why is because I set it at $1.99. The mass consumer had their expectations reset when everybody started saying 99 cents is what I will pay for software and no more. And that's what I'm concerned about, is if they reset this agreed upon kind of pricing structure, there's not going to be enough money for small vendors to make a living, and there's not going to be enough money for innovation, even for the larger guys. That we have enough money to do R&D and make wacky new toys. And if everybody's just scraping by, no one's going to be. It's going to stifle innovation.
I agree that is going to be a challenge for all the hundreds, if not thousands, of people that have dedicated themselves to designing these modules. But I think the other flip side is that haven't we seen this same? I'm just being devil's advocate here, but haven't we
Sure.
seen this same scenario in industry as a whole? We've turned from boutique makers. Um, Capitalism sees there's money to be made, and they turn this into an industry and process. I don't know whether this isn't a Behringer thing. This is an actual,
It,
state of society thing. And
it could be anybody.
Behringer just happened to be the people who have set themselves up their factory and process to do all of this.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of this kind of process myself, but this is what we've all been living with all our lives, and why we couldn't afford these you know exotic synthesizers in the first place is because they were boutique. I can't afford a TR-808. People want £3,500 for those.
Right.
You know, and I see this is where it becomes an issue to me because as a consumer, I'm not a maker. Like I don't design. All I do is DIY. And I understand there's a price to that, and there has to be people who are designing the modules that I'm making, and I respect that.
Hmm.
But as a consumer, I welcome being able to pay £299 for something that I would have to pay £3,500 for something that's 35 years old, and had some battery damage. Various people have had a go on it, modifying it, and to me, there's a real clash of ideals here.
Yeah, but that's
But
that's what I was saying is that for the stuff that is out of production and not available, absolutely. I mean, it makes so much sense to have a company like Behringer step in and kind of fill that gap. But what I'm saying is that this gap that we're talking about now is not that. It is basically stealing the bread out of someone else's mouth.
I know, ultimately, I agree with you. That's what it comes down to. But especially when something comes out that someone's. I mean, I was watching the video just now that Mylar Melodies put up on the Erdverb,
Hmm.
the Erdverb video, and just talking about the development of the hardware, the software, and the hours he's put into it, and also the insight into um, the thought process to try and develop something.
It's so hard not to see.
Yeah,
I need my magnifier.
I
you
know,
and
mate.
you
I
and
can't.
you and me both.
I think basically what I'm saying is you watch someone. It's basically humbling to see the amount of time someone puts into developing a piece of hardware and all the software that goes on it. And I do agree. If anyone was to basically simply, copy someone else's work and then sell it as their own, that morally doesn't seem correct to me.
Okay. Well, then, I mean, what is that? What is it?
Well,
Which space does this exist in? Yeah.
I know.
And dear viewer, that is a question for you to answer. We're all in the end. We're gonna have to vote with our wallets. We're gonna have to vote with our wallets if we want this thing to to be as it is, then we need to take a stand. If we don't really care and we're ready for Eurorack and modular in general to kind of make it into that next world of mass consumption, so be it.
But there is an argument as well to say that maybe this is a good thing. I'm not saying that it is, but I'm saying maybe this will drive more, make it available to the masses, which will
Hmm.
then point them towards the boutique makers.
Perhaps, but like I said, those masses are going to have their pricing reset by Behringer, and Behringer's pricing is going to be much lower, if history is any guide, than what we're all comfortable with developing under.
So
That's
what,
that's
what do you
that's
think
that's
the
that's that's my point. Is that it's going to be very difficult going forward. I mean, some of the larger, already the larger Eurorack folks are going to be okay. I would think they'll be able to make the transition. They sell quite a bit, but it's going to make it very difficult for a new manufacturer to break into the market, and then we're going to be stuck with the same thing we have from like Korg and Roland, which is they don't really understand what to do, and innovation is just difficult.
I know the Korg. I think the Korg and Roland argument is an interesting one because what we've seen there are companies that know well. They see, they must be
they
aware
they
of
they claim
people.
they claim to know. I don't think that's
They
true.
must, yeah, they must know what people want, and yet they don't always produce the goods. But interestingly, talking about that, did you hear a slightly different subject? Jean-Michel Jarre releasing the information that 2020 Korg are releasing a 2600.
I didn't see that, but that's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. I did actually think I hope Behringer don't beat them.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. I mean,
So that'd be,
it would be a really neat thing to see. Yeah, we're just in for interesting times. How's that?
yeah,
But isn't
I'm
that Chinese
open-minded.
curse?
I'm not a maker, so I know that like I've got friends that produce modules. Like Darren, for example. I mean, I would personally be, I wouldn't want to see any of my friends or anything go out of business because of anyone else's actions
Mm-hmm.
or be hurt by it in any way, and that would be upsetting. So, from that point of view, I would be very worried if I was somebody who was in that, in the Eurorack space. Um, I mean, it is worrying.
Yeah. All right. Well, back on to better fun soldering topics. I am going to invest in some gel flux because the liquid stuff is just evaporating too fast for me these days.
I'll start getting, I'll start getting into that.
Yeah.
Shall, shall I talk about some, whilst you're doing that soldering, I'll talk about some stuff I've done this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I basically started making oh no, they're green, aren't they?
That's fantastic. It's one of those
Yeah,
glass printed circuit boards.
it's translucent ones.
Now, for the folks that don't know, we run a green screen for everything, so we can appear
Yeah,
nice on the thing. And if you want me to, I will turn yours off just for a second because it's just green. Um, there we
they
go.
was,
There we go. Okay.
yeah,
So that's what it actually looks like. It is a frequency central module.
yeah.
Doing
It's a
what?
State
Doing what?
Seven. It's a State 700 Mark II. It's like a
Okay.
filter. Made three of them. So yeah,
Nice.
got yeah.
How's it sound?
Just made. Well, I've got one already. They're just like a nice. Well, interestingly, now we're talking about 100M clone.
Okay.
Talking about clones.
Yeah. I knew you would do that. But again, I mean, you
Yeah,
try to buy a System 100M these days.
I know, but I'm just saying. But also, I
And that's an interesting thing. I mean, Moog is still a company. They're still out there. They're still making filters, and yet people tend to accept a transistor ladder clone
yeah,
pretty
some
readily.
people, without naming any brands, there are people who are well known for their, the transistor filters and ladder filters.
Hmm.
There, people say, "Oh yeah, get that one. That's
A
a
really good
really good,
clone.
yeah." And this is the thing that it does, and also people use data sheets or they use the designs of well-known makers to produce
The
their
repair
Eurorack.
guides. The repair guides. Isn't
Yeah,
that where
yeah,
everybody
yeah.
gets most of their schematics? I mean, that's what I've always seen.
There's a lot of this replication happening inside the music scene, with all of these things because it's a well-known circuit.
Right.
Like the 808,
Yep.
is full of circuits that people use. The T
Or the
network.
T network. Yeah, I get out of my
Yeah,
head. Something we were
yeah,
talking about before the show. Um,
yeah.
but
For
yeah, I mean,
example, that's
but those are just like out of an engineer's notebook. I mean, there's a lot of like the EN 129 oscillator is from Electronotes number 129. That's why it's named as such. But to take that, I mean, there's still so much effort to go through and just take from a schematic on a page to go out, source components, to lay it all out in a current PCB design package, design the PCB, make everything fit. I mean, some of these are quite dense, right? There's a lot of work to make all these components fit and connect to each other the right way. It's hours and hours and days of somebody's life, like you said. Um, do they not
like,
deserve to be compensated for that effort too? I mean, where do we draw
I
these
mean,
lines?
also, we're talking about mutable instruments, for example.
Mm,
When I myself have some mutable instruments like the micro U ones.
yep,
They're not made by mutable instruments. Is
they're
anyone
not.
pay? You know, those are we all happily have those in our racks.
Yeah, I've kind of shied away from that. I'm actually doing I think I told you I'm doing more
Yeah,
retail mutable stuff, but I mean it's kind of we've accepted those because we know it's not something that Mutable is going to make. They're not going to make microformat modules. They made a decision when they designed it early on that this is the size, and it's mostly that way for usability, right? I mean that's been
but
stated over and over again. But
here's a bit of tragedy for you. When I put parasites
mm,
on my clouds, um, that on the parasites webpage when you download it, it says, "Oh, please donate. This has taken time and effort for me to produce." I thought, fair enough. I donated, but I
for
didn't
for
donate anything.
for software, I mean
Yeah,
that's a firmware, yeah.
yeah, but I didn't donate anything to Emily.
Mm.
You know, when I put the original firmware on.
See, I sent an email and said I've been making some modules, and I didn't realize that it was such a kind of a divisive topic out there. I would like to send some money,
Yeah,
and I got a nice email back saying, no, I made everything open source specifically so that you could learn, which is exactly what you were doing.
yeah.
So we're all good, and I very much appreciate it. And,
It's a
okay,
funny old
great,
world, though, isn't it? I mean, without Emily's work, there would be no clouds.
right.
But yet I understand and donated on the basis of the Parasite software firmware being created. There was a request, if you feel like, and I love the Parasites firmware.
Hmm.
I use it on both of my clouds,
What do you do?
and
Yeah, what do you do when you have that much solder left?
it's
I want to use it because it's nice and skinny, but it's just not much there.
the kind of thing. When I was soldering with Darren, he was constantly stealing solder from my solder. Apparently, it's a thing he does.
Nice. And did you
Yeah,
replace it with tin copper wire?
no, I should have done. Yeah. So let me talk about my stasis leak.
Yes, please, because I know not enough.
Well, this is just I've taken to doing just control boards for some reason
Hmm.
because I got this because I can't bring myself to do loads of look at that see through again.
Nice.
But yeah, well, it's got the. I know we talked about this briefly. I've got the cool audio chip here. It's just like on a little breakout board.
Mm.
You got to put a header on. It shouldn't be too bad, but it looks good. I mean, I'm excited about the DSP reverb, just because I keep banging on about the PT2399 being noisy.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to hearing that. Although I would have liked it if it had stereo input as well as stereo out. It's got like a, I guess it's just a copied stereo out, not like a true stereo
Oh,
because
okay.
it's a,
Yeah. It's not processed separately.
no. But if I had, maybe it's only a mono input on the chip, but I was just thinking I like to do panning into stereo, into
Mm.
reverb. But I guess I could just have a separate mono, panned mono for the actual dry signal, and then have the stereo reverb as a kind of return bus kind of thing. We'll see. I'll come up with something some more NLC triple sloths.
Nice. I actually cannot find. I found the panel. I cannot find the PCB. I used to have everything kitted out. I think I posted all the boxes when I moved. Um, Boxes and boxes of kitted modules. There's basically a folder that I keep that has the BOM, the schematic, everything, all the data, and then all the actual individual parts. And I number everything on my own. So the BOM comes out with numbers, and I just have all my parts. So I know precisely when it's done and ready to be built. And I found the plate for the sloth, the triple sloth, but I
Yeah,
cannot find and the plate should be in the folder, but I found the plate by itself, and I can't find the folder anywhere.
man. Yeah, this is the one that I put the control boards on the wrong side. Like all the.
Oh yes, you did get them off. You ended up getting all your pots back, which are expensive components.
I know, but I just couldn't handle the brown staining.
You
You
tried
can't remove
you
it.
tried to scrape that off with the acetone or no?
Yeah,
It's truly
yeah. I
burned.
try to
It's truly
scrape off of
burned.
everything. It's like proper.
Uh, that's frustrating.
Yeah, it's like cracked. It's just a solder mask. But yeah, I've got this one. Well, hopefully Jane will finish it for me. Got one that's missing a few bits. I think I might have just turned up
Okay.
sloths there. I've got the black panelled FM Ogre.
Oh, I do hate you. I wanted that for so long, that panel.
I know I've got
I keep thinking of order some, but it's an order from Europe that I haven't pulled the trigger on yet.
a board well.
Yep, that I have the stencil for if you'd like to try to paste and reflow.
Yeah, it does look worth doing because it's quite tight.
A little bit.
Ish.
I think that's the one that started ruining my eyes.
Yeah,
I did a lot of them in rapid succession, and that was hard. I mean, eventually we're going to have to invest in a pick and place machine.
nice.
But so there we go. I mean, that was it for passives and such. It's not the best. I will probably touch up a few of these and certainly clean it. But
Yeah,
that's all there is. There's 8 resistors, 4 capacitors, the voltage regulator, and 3 big electrolytics. And I forgot to ask you your technique for electrolytics. I don't like these cans, but you said you have a special technique for them.
well, it's not really that special, but I just like to hold it with my. I basically just like tin one pad,
Mm-hmm.
and then just use my. You just kind of pinch it, and then slide, and then heat it. Heat, like it's like you do with the resistors, is heat and
Mm-hmm.
slide to get
Sure.
the first one. Which I guess is similar to what you've done, but I feel, I've not had a problem with that
Mm.
because I know it's a bit underneathy, but it seems to work. And I just bang loads of flux in, and then
Yeah.
just hope for the best on a retouch and give it a little wiggle.
Yep.
Always give it a little wiggle.
Yeah, this seems to be in good shape. I am going to have to do some retouching on this, and of course, there's a lot of flux around left over on the board, but pretty sure it's probably electrically just fine.
Yeah. So if anything, you didn't use half as much flux as I use.
I've been
I,
dabbing. I've been dabbing on, but it's the liquid stuff, so you can't see it. I mean, it just evaporates so fast.
I
Doesn't.
literally cover. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I cover
You see
everything in that stuff.
how thin that is. No,
Yeah.
I need to get a tube of the gel. I just need it to stick around longer than that. It flashes so quick. All right, so next up, let's do power. Now it's nice they give you the keyed header, but it doesn't show me
Which side? It
Which
does
way?
on
And
there.
I always forget. Does it? Well, no. It says
It's got a little arrow. It's got a
That's
little arrow on it.
does it?
Yeah, a little arrow points towards the negative side.
Sure. I always do this.
Yeah,
Sanity check. make
yeah,
sure make sure that that's right. So that's that way.
I was
Negative
right.
-12. Of course you're right.
It's luck. No, it wasn't. I would have checked it anyway, three
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. Just to make sure this is not one you want to screw up. So I'll do that.
Bit of blue tack to hold it on.
Nah, just my finger. Asbestos fingers.
I always like to use a blue tack. There we go.
I just need one solid joint. And the other corner.
So it's very close to your thumb there.
Oh. Oh. Okay.
Burning.
That's my finger. It's fine.
Nice.
Been doing this entirely too long. I left the other day. These are all burn spots.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I just don't care anymore. Oh, out of focus. Sorry. This is so. It's so much to manage when you're trying to record stuff and.
No.
You happy with your microscope cam yet, or no?
No, it's terrible. You can
Uh,
literally show like the. I could probably show the area that you're soldering, and that's it.
oh, that's not nearly as good as I thought it was going to be.
No, it's like too narrow. The fit.
Yeah.
Like when we were showing the pictures earlier, that's about as good as it can get. Also, I've got this interesting thing to make at some point. Have you seen these?
Not familiar, no.
It's made by 64 Pixels.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little MIDI. It's really cool, actually. It's like a little. You should look it up on the. It's called Le Strum.
Yeah, no, I saw. I mean, I saw the box, but I have no
Yeah,
idea what. No
it's
idea
got
what it
like
is.
a little. It's got like a little contact. Let me see if I can get it out. Actually, it's got a little metal contact and you've got a little stylus that you play it with,
Sure.
and you run this stylus along this little guy, and it basically sounds like you're playing a guitar almost. It's a really cool.
I'm intrigued.
So you basically, and you obviously you then use that as an input device for your synthesizer. I think I might have the front here. Look, there we go. Can you see that?
Oh yeah,
So
okay.
so you run the stylus along these little contact pads,
Mm-hmm.
and you get like really cool effect from it.
Huh. Yeah,
It's made by
I'm interested to see that in process. That's cool.
yeah, that's one of the ones that I'm looking forward to. It's made by
What are those ridges? Or is it just?
they are like a very shiny, it's like a mirror, but it's obviously
It's
metal.
just traces, or they're
Contact.
soldered on. They're
Yeah,
soldered on there.
they're soldered on, and you get a little. I'm not sure what or maybe you use a little wire or something and it basically plays. It goes ding 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 ding, like and
Yeah.
it plays. It sounds. I mean, we'll have to get a video up of it.
Yes, please.
It's a really cool little thing.
Nice. So going
'Cause,
back,
like,
actually reading the build guide, I found out that I screwed up. That button
yeah.
placement actually does say that you're supposed to trim those two pins that interfere with the power header. if only,
Wow.
if only just. But that's okay.
It didn't make it wasn't a game changer though, was it?
No,
It was
no,
still
I've embedded mine in the plastic, which is.
just recently with that Westlich Performer, there was a similar issue with that,
Yeah.
where the power header clashed with with a component on the back.
I was also going through looking again because this is something I actually remembered after the fact, is that they didn't use the landing for this particular jack. They have you remove the small ground leg.
Oh yeah.
here. So I actually have to remove all of these before I can place. I would have done this off camera
If you'd read it. Yeah.
if I'd read it all first.
Yeah.
So this is the hardest bit, is actually getting everything to go through the holes, because these buttons are just wobbly. And this is actually chewing up my button.
I shouldn't be laughing, but
Yes, you should.
yeah.
Absolutely should.
I find this is the kind of thing that I find annoying. That's why I'm laughing, because it's not me doing it.
Yeah, but you see where it's actually cutting in to the button here. This might be just a little too close. This is a gorgeous aluminum panel, but the edges are very, very sharp. I almost wonder if I want to go around the inside of those with a little bit of sandpaper first.
What, and remove the lovely front coating?
No, just the inside of the inside of those little circles, because they're extremely sharp.
Oh yeah, see that.
And it's actually, and you can see, I don't know if you can see, it's actually starting to cut into the button itself. And so with repeated use, I would see that being a problem going on. All right, I think I'm going to do that. That's a thing I can't abide. I sunk the little pins into the power header. That was my own fault. Everything else is fine, but I don't want these buttons to start shedding plastic shavings through repeated use. So I'm going to call it, and I'll do that after the show.
Cool, man.
And then we'll bring it back.
You've done a good job.
It is what it is. I don't think so, but thank you.
Well, you were out till 1:30 last night, so
I think that's probably at least part of the issue. There's also a layout for this that I didn't respect. I now need to follow the build guide, people. It's there to help you. Yeah, good enough. So yes, this is going to be the end of this episode. Very much appreciate all the positive feedback. All you guys out here who are soldering and doing stuff. Hit like, subscribe, say hello. Grab us if you find us at a show and say hello. Whatever it happens to be. We appreciate you taking the time and listen to us ramble. Let us know what you think about the Behringer conversation.
I didn't say anything bad, Yuli.
Or don't.
It was all him.
I don't know. I mean, I would honestly welcome the conversation. You want to talk about it? You come on the show. The invitation is there. Okay. Have a good one.
No, well, here we go. That's how it's done. If you just tuned in, this is Noodling on Wires.